Greetings, free thinkers. Welcome to the Hoggcast. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing fine. I certainly am. Okay, what do we have for you on today's episode? We have for you the quote-unquote Chinafication of Europe. Now, it is important that European, what we call MEPs, Member of European Parliament, are finally understanding what's happening to Europe, which is essentially, I know America's the powerhouse, we all get that. But when it comes to Western civilization, Europe is its beating heart. America might be its strong bicep, but Europe's the beating heart, yeah? And you could say that Britain's the brain. I'm talking specifically on a Western history level, okay? So, my point is, Europe is at least worth trying to save. Right? From globalization, from Chinafication, as this Romanian MEP is going to say. Now, there are a split in the European political scene, which I should imagine you are aware, which is a tiny minority of very powerful politicians in Europe who are fully on board with the Soros movement. And then you have the much larger group of politicians who have been sent to Parliament by their local constituency, and they are actually trying to push back on what's happening in Europe. You might think that's a bit strange to say that. You might think that it's the majority of them that are pushing radical leftism, but it's not really. How many Angela Merkels are there out there? How many Emmanuel Macrons are there out there? Not many, but they are the high profile ones because they agree with the mainstream media's agenda, or the mainstream media agrees with their agenda, which is why you hear glowing reports of Angela Merkel, but it's nothing but bad press on Nigel Farage. They march in lockstep. Anyway, look, let's listen to what this Romanian MEP has to say. He's going to spit some facts, as the cool kids say it. That's what the cool kids say, isn't it? They spit some facts. We do nothing but spit around here. You will be pleased to know. So let's get into this now. If you haven't yet though, please like the video, subscribe to the Hoggcast, hit the notification bell, and share the video around if you find this video informative. That helps us stay competitive with the larger mainstream media outlets that YouTube unfortunately prioritizes. We also have a membership scheme. I have 8 amazing members which you can become a part of if you so choose. It helps to support the Hoggcast, helps keep my morale up, because we are unfortunately deboosted, shadow banned as they call it, because we are the underdog. We are the conservative commentators. Let's go. Okay, as normal, we'll play the clip all the way through, and then we'll go back and we'll stop it intermittently to make the points that I feel I need to make.
Clearly, we are witnessing right now the Chinafication of Europe, because we see what is happening in China right now with the social credit score, where the government is monitoring and surveilling all the people from the beginning to end. Everything that they do, everything, everywhere where they walk, they control everything, and they watch everything. This is the example of a tyranny. When the government knows everything about you, where you go, what you eat, where you enter, that's the tyrannical system. And we've seen this system being implemented right now under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen, slowly but surely in the European Union. The green certificate was just the first step. There are a few more proposals right now under debate in the parliament. The European wallet ID, for example, the European social security card, all these things that are creating a system that will monitor, control, supervise, and condition the rights of all the European citizens. Just yesterday, before yesterday actually, on Monday, in the plenary, we had the Commissioner for Work. And he said, well, we need the European social security card number, pass, as he called it, certificate, to facilitate the freedom of movement. You know, we heard this before with the green certificate. So they use, this is the same narrative. And I invite you guys as journalists, just watch what they say and what they do. Because there's 180-degree difference.
sorry to interrupt it, but I just have to say that if he's expecting journalists to do that, he's well-meaning but slightly naive. And I should imagine the journalists are chuckling amongst themselves because they're in on it. They do the same. They say one thing and do another.
From what they say and what they promise and what they are committing to in front of the plenary and what the end result is. When the green certificate was implemented, again, the commissioner said on record that this is to facilitate the freedom of movement, and that's it. Even in the case that someone does not have this green certificate, the regulation allows you to freely travel from one country to another. The problem is when you arrive in a certain country, you will have to follow certain medical restrictions, like quarantine and others. So from what we was told back then in April and May, look where we are right now. So I'm glad that you asked this question, and I invite all the journalists from Europe and from the world to see what is happening here, because we should not allow this. We should not forget that the European Union was created in a total opposition of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and what a point to end it on, and that was. But look, we'll go back, play it again, and we'll stop it intermittently because there's some points I'm just bursting to make.
Clearly, we are witnessing right now the Chinafication of Europe, because we see what is happening in China right now with the social credit score, where the government is monitoring and surveilling all the people from the beginning to end. Everything that they do, everything, everywhere where they walk, they control everything and they watch everything.
Yes, you cannot argue. Only the most dyed-in-the-wool leftist would argue that this is now happening in the West. And it is a sign of a government that is up to no good. A government that fears its own people, right? It's a sign that they're up to no good. When they're highly suspicious of their own people, they need to... This small little group of people who apparently represent the general public... They need to know everything about you. They need to know where you are at all times. It all stinks of suspicion. Okay, it stinks of suspicion. Why do you need to know where I am? If you're a government official, why do you need to know that? It all comes down to control. There is a concerted effort to push what will be for most people a modern dark age, which for the tiny minority of elite type people, for them things are just going to be dandy-o. You've heard them say before that you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Do you think they'll own nothing? Do you think they'll have nothing and be happy? Of course not. Don't be stupid.
This is the example of a tyranny. When the government knows everything about you, where you go, what you eat, where you enter, that's a tyrannical system. And we've seen this system being implemented right now under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen, slowly but surely in the European Union.
Slowly but surely, there is such a key word, because this is how stupid they think you are, and the majority of people out there, I would say, have been far too susceptible to the conditioning. But that statement, that turn of phrase, slowly but surely, describes it perfectly. Because instead of having one big radical change, what they're doing instead is they're taking tiny little steps over days, weeks, months, years, and hoping that from point A to point B, which has seen a radical change, that because they've gone from point A to point B very slowly, that you won't notice. That's what they're hoping. And then by the time you do notice, it's too late. Why do you think the people who speak out against this type of thing are always, like on YouTube, deboosted, shadow banned, chased off of social media, have the usual suspects doing hit pieces on them, smearing their names? They have to shut you up. They have to show you that if you dare not comply, you'll be obliterated. And that's what they want to do. That's what they are doing.
The green certificate was just the first step. There are a few more proposals right now under debate in the parliament. The European wallet ID, for example. The European social security card.
Yeah. It all sounds so candy canes and rainbows, doesn't it? The European this and the green card that and the people's card that all sounds very socialist, doesn't it? The people's this and the people's that.
All these things that are creating a system that will monitor, control, supervise, and condition the rights of all the European citizens.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. I've said for a long time that as we speak right now, the two biggest engines for this globalist push, the new normal, and I've said that the two biggest engines, as I mentioned a moment ago, for globalist movements is the European Union and the United Nations. These two together, they are the two biggest arms, the two engines powering globalism. What does the United Nations do? Give me some tangible benefit that they do, because they just seem to exist. It's like a place that washed up, corrupt globalist politicians go to get a plum job by all of the different Western taxpayers who all contribute to the United Nations. Don't expect Eastern countries to do the same. They take, we give. So this United Nations that just is, it's just there, and it serves no purpose. If you were to click your fingers and it would be gone today, tomorrow nothing would change, other than you'd have more of your own money. You wouldn't be giving it away to corrupt officials. But there's no need. It doesn't serve a purpose.
Just yesterday, before yesterday actually, on Monday, in the plenary, we had the Commissioner for Work. And he said, well, we need the European Social Security card number, pass, as he called it, certificate, to facilitate the freedom of movement. You know, we heard it.
To facilitate the freedom of movement. In other words, what they're trying to push is domestic passports. This is something they had in the Soviet Union. It's what you would be deported to a gulag for if you didn't have it in your possession. Basically, a domestic passport is wherever you go within your own country, if you don't show your papers, tell them who you are, where you're going, why you've left your house, you could be deported. And of course, corruption was endemic. They had quotas to fill, so they would just they would round people up, even youngsters. They would round youngsters up and send them off to gulags. The domestic passport. That's what this is. They can use their semantic games and call it the most beautiful, amazing certificate of freedom times 10,000. But essentially, it is a domestic passport to facilitate the freedom of movement. Who are these government officials to tell me that I need a certificate to walk down the street? If you are, why didn't you run for this when you were running for office? Why didn't you put it past the people? Say, look, this is what I'm going to do. You will have to ask me for permission if you want to leave your house. They don't. They run, it's the exact and literal opposite of what they run on. And they do it all the time, and it really boils my urine that people don't see it for what it is. Some people do, but the normies, the 2.4 children, the keeping up with the Joneses, yeah, they believe all that crap. And they just vote for them again and again and again.
This before with the green certificate. So they use this is the same narrative. And I invite you guys as journalists, just watch what they say and what they do.
This guy, although he's on the right track with a lot of things, when he's speaking directly to the journalists, I don't think he's aware that the people he's talking to are all marching in lockstep with the people he's criticising. I mean, of course he's speaking to the people, but there are journalists there. And by appealing to them, they must be laughing inside. Because they're in lockstep with them. The people he's criticising, and he's sincere and he has very good points. But I don't think he's fully up to date with just how deep the rot goes in Western society.
Because there's 180-degree difference from what they say and what they promise and what they are committing to.
Yes. What he's saying in a roundabout way is, instead of listening to what they say, start watching what they do, because you will notice a big discrepancy. In fact, it's bigger than that. It's worse than a quote-unquote big discrepancy. It is, as he says, it's a 180. It's the exact and literal opposite. If they tell you that tomorrow they are heading north, think they're heading south, right? And you will know. And then you'll catch them if you waited for them down south. They'd be like, oh, well, you know, my sat-nav must have gone wrong. Something must have happened somewhere. Somebody set me up. It's a conspiracy. It's those far-right Trumpsters.
In front of the plenary, and what the end result is. When the green certificate was implemented, again, the commissioner said on record that this is to facilitate the freedom of movement.
Yeah. A green certificate. A certificate is something you get when you achieve something. So these people want you to feel all achieved, like, oh yes, you know, I've got my green certificate. You act like they're doing you a favour. You act like them giving you permission to walk down the street because you've got your pink slip, your little green slip. Like they're helping you. They're hindering you. They're not helping you. They're hindering you.
And that's it. Even in the case that someone does not have this green certificate, the regulation allows you to freely travel from one country to another. The problem is when you arrive in a certain country, you will have to follow certain medical restrictions, you know, like quarantine and others. So from what we was told back then in April and May, look where we are right now. So I'm glad that...
Yes. It's changed a lot, isn't it? From 15 days to stop the spread, to slow the spread. My oh my, hasn't things changed? Alarmingly. And quickly. And what he says, think about from then till now, very good point. But I've got a better one for you. Think about from now until then. From now until next year. From now until 5 years. Maybe you've got a young family at home. From now until 10 years. What's it going to be like then? People keep listening to what they say instead of watching what they do.
You ask this question, and I invite all the journalists from Europe and from the world to see what is happening here.
They know. They're complicit in it. This guy must obviously be an independent. He's Romanian, but he's obviously independent. I think maybe he's learning a lot. I think maybe he's coming around to how things really are in Western society. Yeah. But he, I believe, probably still has a romanticized version or idealized version of what journalism is, especially Western journalism. He probably thinks that we're still in the era of Walter Cronkite and the, you know, like the early days when journalists had integrity. Can you remember those days when they had integrity instead of being just activists, all left-wing activists? So he can call on these journalists. I'm sure they have a chuckle to themselves when he says that. I really do.
Because we should not allow this. We should not forget that the European Union was created in a total opposition of the Soviet Union.
Yeah. This is the end of the clip, but that point is a brilliant one to end on, because Russia, and for my American viewers, let me tell you something, yeah, because we have a lot of Russians living in Britain, we have a lot of Latvians, Lithuanians, and so on. Russia isn't what Nancy Pelosi would have you think. Russia isn't what Chuck Schumer would have you think. They know that because they have business dealings over there. They just don't want you to know that. Instead, they want you to be scared of Russia whilst they make the money off of Russia. That's what they do. The Bidens, the Democrats, the globalist crony elite. But on a normal person to normal person level, I'll tell you, Russia's a good country. It's a great place. I want to visit there. But we are becoming a more Soviet in the West. It's a strange paradox. Not Russian, Soviet. Whereas the Russians have abandoned Soviet ideology largely, not entirely. And it's the Russian Federation. It's not the Soviet Union anymore. They're the Russian Federation now. And they have been since, I think, 1991, the year 1990, something like that. We have become... It's like when the Soviet Union collapsed. The cultural Marxists kind of filtered their way west, and they started their crap here. And they did a very good job on the millennials. You look at the millennial generation. I think that's the first generation in human history that has failed to surpass the previous generation. Millennials are just ridiculous. Just ridiculous people. Anyway, look, my rant is over. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.